Now at 11, former President Donald Trump speaking out after this weekend's assassination attempt. We're following the latest, including new details about the gunman.
With increased security, the Republican National Convention is moving full speed ahead, and we are expected to learn former President Trump's running mate.
And the classified documents case against the former president has been dismissed. We'll explain the judge's decision. Good morning and welcome to the KTLA 5 Morning News at 11 a.m. I'm Glenn Walker.
And I'm Lou Parker. Thanks for joining us on this Monday. We begin with developing news on the assassination attempt of former President Trump. We're learning new details about the gunman.
And for the first time since the shooting, we are hearing from the former president. We have live team coverage of the shooting and reaction from lawmakers. We'll start with KTLA 5's Lauren Lister live in the newsroom with the latest developments. Lauren?
Glenn and Lou, former President Donald Trump giving his first interview since the attempt on his life as authorities search for the shooter's motive. And we're learning stunning new details about the moments before shots were fired as authorities investigate how a gunman was able to get so close and open fire on Donald Trump. In a print interview with the New York Post, Trump saying he is, quote, supposed to be dead. I shouldn't be here, he says, saying he would not be had he not have just turned his head slightly to read a chart at the rally, recalling the moments he was shot with a bullet that he reports hit the upper part of his right ear, all caught on camera. Trump commending the Secret Service in that New York Post interview for the moments you see here when they rushed to shield him and for gunning down the shooter moments after he fired 6 to 8 rounds from a roof around 150 yards from where Trump was speaking at that Butler, Pennsylvania rally, hitting Trump, killing a spectator, critically injuring 2 more people. We'll have a lot more on those victims later in the show. Trump was minutes into his speech, a little after 6 p.m. local time. The FBI now investigating this as an assassination attempt and potential act of domestic terror. They believe the shooter acted alone. These images show the blurred body of the shooter on the roof after he had been killed. Secret Service say he fired from an elevated position outside of the rally venue and perimeter. Some disturbing new details emerging. Law enforcement sources telling CBS Network News bystanders had spotted the shooter with a rifle on a roof and reported his presence to authorities. The sheriff of Butler County said a local cop was hoisted by another officer to look on the roof, the shooter pointing his rifle at the officer who let go and fell off. President Biden has ordered an independent review of security, and head of Homeland Security, which oversees Secret Service, saying this to CNN.
When I say that something like this cannot happen, we are speaking of a failure. We are going to analyze through an independent review how that occurred, why it occurred, and make recommendations and findings to make sure it doesn't happen again.
We'll hear what President Biden said about all of this in a moment. But first, I want to go to this next video. The FBI has identified the shooter as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crook. Seen an old video here from Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, a middle-class suburb near Pittsburgh, about an hour's drive from Saturday's rally. He has no criminal history, worked as a dietary aide at a nursing home. You're looking at where he lived. He'd recently graduated from community college and was a member of an area club with a 200-yard rifle range. Officials say they recovered an AR-15 type semi-automatic rifle from his body Saturday that was legally purchased by the shooter's father. The FBI has his phone, along with a rudimentary explosive among his belongings that was found. He was registered Republican, but had also donated $15 to a progressive cause in 2021. Federal authorities say he had no apparent history of mental health issues or previous threats. KTLA's Chip Yost in Pennsylvania spoke to a former classmate.
I knew him from school just because he was bullied. I mean, he was bullied, he was outcast, really had no friends. He always had just that bland emotion on his face, just so serious.
In Washington last night, President Biden giving a rare Oval Office address condemning the assassination attempt and all political violence.
A former president was shot, an American citizen killed, while simply exercising his freedom to support the candidate of his choosing. We cannot, we must not go down this road in America. We've traveled before throughout our history. Violence has never been the answer.
Presumptive GOP presidential nominee Donald Trump at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, which is moving forward as planned. We have yet to see him publicly today, but we are expecting soon to hear his VP pick. That's the latest. Live in the newsroom, I'll send it back to you.
Lauren, thank you. We are also learning more details about the firefighter who was killed during the assassination attempt. 50-year-old Corey Comparatori was a former fire chief who shielded his wife and daughter as bullets flew toward them. In a social media post, his daughter called her father a real-life superhero. He also has a SoCal connection. His uncle is former Menifee City Council member Tom Furman. He remembered Comparatori as someone who was always helping others. The two other victims shot during that rally are said to be in stable condition.
Politicians on both sides of the aisle are voicing concerns over the assassination attempt.
President Biden addressed the nation just last night from the Oval Office to speak out against political violence. Ktla 5's Kimberly Chang joining us now here in the studio to explain. Hi, Kimberly.
Lou Glenn, hi. As reaction pours in over the attempted assassination of former President Trump, there's been near universal condemnation. President Biden and others are calling on Americans to lower the temperature in our politics.
There's no place in America for this kind of violence, or any violence for that matter. An assassination attempt is contrary to everything we stand for as a nation, everything. I'm instructed that this investigation be thorough and swift, and the investigators will have every resource they need to get this done.
Republican and Democratic leaders reacted, including California Governor Gavin Newsom, who wrote, "Violence has no place in our democracy. My thoughts are with President Trump and everyone impacted at the rally." Representative Adam Schiff said there's no place for political violence in our democracy. Absolutely none. Grateful for the swift response by law enforcement and Secret Service. Former House Speaker Representative Nancy Pelosi, whose husband Paul Pelosi was violently assaulted in their San Francisco home in 2022, said, "As one whose family has been the victim of political violence, I know firsthand that political violence of any kind has no place in our society. I thank God that former President Trump is safe." LA Mayor Karen Bass wrote, "Political violence has no place in our nation. I wish former President Trump a full recovery, and my thoughts are with all of those impacted this evening." House Speaker Mike Johnson said the horrific act of political violence should be unanimously and forcefully condemned. He told NBC's Today Show that President Biden should be called out for political attacks on Trump, which he said contributed to a heated political environment. Johnson also blamed the media and Hollywood elites for the charged atmosphere and suggested that no figure in American history since Abraham Lincoln has been as vilified as Trump. Johnson specifically referenced recent comments by Biden during a call with political donors in which Biden said it's time to put Trump in the bullseye.
Said in recent days, it's time to put a bullseye on Trump. I mean, I know that he didn't mean what is being implied there, but that kind of language on either side should be called out, and we have to make clear that this is part of our system. We can have vigorous debate, but it needs to end there.
This is a moment where all leaders have a responsibility to speak and act with moral clarity, where all leaders need to take down the temperature and rise above the hateful rhetoric that exists and search for a better, brighter future for this nation.
Some international leaders also reacting. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, "We pray for his safety and speedy recovery." And Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said in part, "We have been adversaries, but I wish President Trump health and long life, and I repudiate that attack." Reporting live, I'm Kimberly Chang, KTLA 5 News.
All right, thank you, Kimberly. A judge this morning dismissed the federal classified documents case against former President Trump. KTLA 5's Alina Abovian joining us now live in the News Center with the latest on that decision. Alina?
Glenn, good morning. Well, this was a major legal threat against former President Donald Trump, and now the judge presiding over the case has decided to toss it out. Take a look. U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon said this in an order this morning. The superseding indictment is dismissed because special counsel Jack Smith's appointment violates the Appointments Clause of the United States Constitution. Judge Cannon, who was appointed by Trump during his presidency to serve as judge in the Southern District of Florida, directed the clerk to officially close the case. Essentially, the judge saying that he deemed counsel Smith, who filed the charges against Trump, was illegally appointed by the Justice Department. The former president faces 40 charges stemming from his handling of documents marked classified after leaving office, allegedly obstructing the Justice Department's investigation. Mr. Trump responding to news of the dismissal as we move forward in united our nation after the horrific events on Saturday. This dismissal of the lawless indictment in Florida should just be the first step, following quickly by the dismissal of all witch hunts. House Speaker Mike Johnson also responding by saying, as we work to unify this country following the failed assassination attempt of President Trump, we must also work to end the lawfare and political witch hunts that have unfairly targeted President Trump and destroyed the American people's faith in our system of justice. Now, Judge Cannon's decision, however, can still be appealed and overturned by a higher court. We'll send it back to you.
And of course, stay with KTLA for continuing.